Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm Meghann Schense. I'm the owner, founder, operator of The Grove. I am so excited to have all these people in here with all of this energy. So as you guys have known, this is our second location. We've only been open for 5 months. So this is definitely a brand new baby for us. And to have all this amazing energy in here this morning is truly spectacular. So thank you guys for being here. And thank you for asking me to speak and hosting this event. Being a part of Omaha's community has always been so special to me. It's a very collaborative community. To hear what all of you guys are working on and how you support one another is truly one of the reasons I came back to Omaha to open a business here. So I'm proud and happy to be a part of this community. I'm glad you took a poll for who has been to the new location and who has been to our downtown location. That was one of the things I was gonna ask. So I'm glad to see some familiar faces that I know, and glad that we have a lot of newbies here as well. So thank you guys for giving us an opportunity and checking us out. The Grove has truly been a labor of love for me. It has been one of my most challenging and most rewarding businesses to date. So I think, there's a lot of work and hardship that goes behind some of these things that you don't always see on the other side. And so to be able to share something like this with you all is the ultimate goal at the end of the day, and to be able to host events like this and bring people together is really what makes it all worthwhile. When I found out the perspective was the topic for this month, of course, that was sort of relaying in my head over and over, and what does that mean, and what forms our perspectives, where do they come from? I started thinking about it as it seems like a very individual, personal point of view, which it is, but I started thinking about all the outside factors that influence our perspective and how we see the world is impacted by our experiences, by others, by design that we see in the world, by the things that we touch, the food that we eat, the smells. Sometimes we don't even realize this is how our perspective is being formed until then all of a sudden we have a really strong point of view of something. And how did that come about? You used the word belief. And our perspectives absolutely form our beliefs and our lifestyles and how we live our day-to-day lives. One thing I did realize when I was thinking about the word perspective, I realized that it actually is one of my personal greatest strengths. I think the broader your perspective is, the more understanding and connection you can have to each other, to the world, to nature, to design. And I started realizing that I usually always think my greatest strength is being a little OCD, a little over-organized. My mother is here today. She can definitely attest to that. I was organizing my room and my toys at probably a very young age. So I've always thought that that's sort of been my biggest strength, but really, this has really helped me see that I think the perspective I've formed over my life has been one of my greatest strengths. Of course, thinking about perspective, you kind of go back to what have been the main moments throughout my life that have helped me form these points of views and help me get to the place that I am today. Growing up, I had a unique experience and a unique perspective. My parents separated when I was 3, so the idea of a nuclear family to me was never important, and it didn't matter. I was fiercely loved by my family, and that was always what was important at the end of the day. My stepdad is also here today, and he is a huge support in my life.
Now y'all both crying right now. It's so high.
I was not expecting this, and I hate when I get emotional when I'm trying to talk. It's just so annoying. But I'm gonna take a breath and continue on. I spent the majority of my time growing up in California and with my mom in beautiful sunny San Diego, where it was 75 degrees and sunny every day, so you can't really complain there. We literally lived just a few miles from the beach. Our days were filled with sand castles and seashells and sand everywhere, in your swimsuit, in the car, in our house. I mean, it was just, we loved the beach. We would whale watch. We would live in our flip-flops and swimsuits, going to flea markets every weekend, driving down the coast singing Jimmy Buffett songs with, my mom was in her single phase. She had all her single girlfriends. And being an only child, I was just kind of, the little tag along. I loved watching that part of your life. And it was so fun to be in such a beautiful city and grow up around really strong women that my mom surrounded herself with. I remember at a very young age starting an Earth Club, being so close to the ocean and the beach. It was brought to my attention at a very young age that it is our responsibility to take care of our planet. And that was something that I'm so grateful was instilled in my childhood at such a young age. Learning about the idea of conservation and the importance of protecting our oceans and wildlife still is very impactful and with me to this day, and has impacted the way that I treat our planet and Mother Earth still to this day. The other part of my childhood was spent here in Omaha with my dad. So I started flying back and forth by myself by the age of 5. Multiple times a year, I was coming back and forth between San Diego and Omaha. My dad is an attorney here in town, and while he practices family law now, growing up, he specialized in murder trials here in Omaha. So my life here in Omaha was very different from sunny San Diego. I remember spending late nights in the downtown courthouse with my dad while he was working on trials. We would be there, oh my gosh, my dad worked a lot, so we would be there almost every night, and I would just be kind of wandering the halls of this beautiful structure, shadows on all the marble columns at night. I would sneak into rooms that I absolutely know I was not supposed to be in, with evidence and photographs and files that I absolutely also know I was not supposed to be looking at or messing with. But I truly felt like I was kind of in my own little Nancy Drew mystery novel. So I was always sort of very into, kind of being detective and working through little cases and scenarios that I was mostly making up in my head. But yeah, it was a very different tone from a lot of the time that I would be with my mom. But I have very, very wonderful memories of spending seasons here in Omaha, which we didn't have in California. Yeah. So that's what I loved about here. The leaves changing in the fall. My dad lived in Fontenelle Forest in Bellevue, so we would ride our bikes through all this wooded area. It was a very different environment than obviously what I was growing up with in San Diego. Sledding, having white Christmases. We would take our dogs out for late night walks in the snow, and it was just the quiet, dark, the darkness. It was just, like I said, kind of a very different tone when I would come here and experience some of those seasonal aspects. I feel like going back and forth definitely had its challenges as a child, but being immersed in these different nature elements, these different communities as a young person, absolutely helped form my perspective on the world. And these two different places were just something that helped me grow and gain knowledge and experience of very different communities, people, nature, elements. And so expanding my perspective through there, I'm always very grateful for that. As I got older, I entered into a new era of my life I call the athletic era. I was very into competitive sports growing up. It was, I believe, probably one of the most formative chapters of my life, just helping me really bring my perspective inward a little bit more and how I could push myself. I loved being competitive, I loved being aggressive, and as a young woman growing up, being in an organization that encourages competitiveness, aggressiveness, being strong, that was everything to me as a young woman. And that allowed me to flourish without feeling some of those pressures of society that we often feel especially as young women. It stretched my mental, physical, emotional capacities, and allowed me to also make my first real connection with sort of my own body, my own strength, my own capabilities, and really listening to my health. It was the first time I was also sort of realizing, how I took care of myself, what I ate, how I moved my body was so important. And the longevity of how that has helped me physically, mentally, and emotionally stay healthy has been a huge part of my life. I played competitive sports for close to a decade of my life, so it was something that was very important and impactful to me. I played many different sports, but excelled in softball and soccer. I was an excellent first baseman. We have proof I would do the splits on first base and scoop up the ball to get the out. So, you really push yourself for your team. And being that team player too, also something that again and again playing sports on a team taught me was we always accomplish more together. And that is a life lesson that has replicated itself through and through for me. Some of the highlights of playing sports included, state championships, VIP and leadership awards. But when I started thinking and looking back at playing, it was never about winning for me. It really was more about, I just want to play the next game. So it was keeping my health, keeping my ability to just play that next game and do that next round. And again, as you can see in the business I have built today, that idea of well-being and health has absolutely stayed with me and formed my view today. After graduating high school, I attended UNL here in Lincoln, and I double majored in journalism and fashion. This was I had a wonderful experience in college, but it really wasn't until I graduated college and kind of struck out on my own that again, I was kind of forced to push and broaden my perspective. I am one of those crazy people that the minute I graduated school, I moved to New York City. I knew that was always where I wanted to go. I don't know where it came from. I really don't. I just always knew that's what I wanted to do and I had to give it a try. I'm going to date myself a little bit here, but I longed for that grit, the grind, the hustle, the hardship of being in one of the most powerful cities in the world. New York is, to this day, the epicenter of the world. And being there just filled me with so much energy. When I moved to New York for the first time, it was in 2008. It was unfortunately, I was trucking along, having a great time, and then all these banks decided to go bankrupt and didn't let anybody know about it. So that was a shocker. I will never forget the day AIG and Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. You could literally feel the entire city of New York just tense up. It was an incredible time to be there. My friends, most all of them instantly lost their job that afternoon, like most of the city. Wow. People were let go that day. You would see hundreds of people walking down the street with boxes in their hands, as they were taking things out of their offices. So it was a very interesting time to be in this city. And we really hadn't seen anything like that since the Great Depression. So it was, like I said, a very interesting time to be there. I was working at a department store, making most of my money on commission. So when things kind of tightened up, I had to face this reality of what am I going to do? How am I going to pivot and survive this? So I had to face the facts of coming back to Omaha. At the time, as a young person striking out on my own, oh my God, I felt like the biggest failure. I just was like, oh my God, my life is over. I have to go back to Omaha. This is just the worst. I was very lucky when I got here that I found a job that I loved. Anthropologie, I had some friends that I had connected with out in New York, and Anthropologie was opening a store here in Regency. And they asked me to help open the store. Going through that experience, I always say, taught me more than maybe my whole entire 4 or 5 years at Lincoln. I learned so much in that process, and truly it has helped me even build the Grove here today in opening that store, and just on a corporate level, seeing how they roll out store to store to store, how it's managed, how it's operated, how they hire, how they labor, payroll, all these things that I got to be a part of. And then of course, if any of you are fans of anthropology, the visual aspect, the fashion, is really incredible too. So being a part and being hands-on creative with those things also really elevated me and inspired me with the design and fashion background that I had. After working at Anthro for about 2 years, I had this itch again to strike out on my own. Something else that I'm not really sure where this came from, but was willing to leave my steady salaried job with benefits. And I was like, why? Why am I doing this? And there I was giving my 2 weeks and putting together a business plan. This was my first business that I ever put together. Again, sometimes I'm like thinking back, like, where was my head at this? Where was I at this moment in my life? That I was trying to do this. The basis around this first business was around a new concept called social media. It was 2011. Facebook was just sort of phasing out of its for college students only phase, which if any of you remember, that's how it started out. It was literally just for college students. And Instagram was brand spanking new. So why I decided to try to explain to companies here in Omaha why they should put their time and money into social media, I don't know. But there I was, and I was meeting with some big people, Mutual of Omaha, Union Pacific, and meeting with, Creighton, and trying to explain to them how they can market, engage, and sell through these channels. Omaha was not ready for that. It was a very, very foreign concept for this new wave called social media. So again, I was struck out on my own, and here I was kind of thinking like, God damn it, what am I gonna do now? Nobody understands what I'm trying to talk about here. So I took those ideas and kind of went back to more of a familiar industry of mine, fashion. And I started reaching out to contacts I had in that industry and kind of started pitching the same ideas I was talking to people here in Omaha about to fashion designers, brands, and companies around the country, and then eventually around the world. I'm gonna take a quick drink. So sorry, I'm getting over a little bit of a bug, and so my voice is a little off. So that started my journey into consulting for the fashion industry. I started working with companies around the world, primarily high-end designers and brands in Europe and Canada, and I was helping them enter into the US market, so bringing them into marketing and sales in the US. I loved this job of mine. I don't know how I got fortunate enough to become in this world, but again, fashion's one of those worlds where you get in there and you realize it is pretty small. And once you know one person, you kind of get connected to another and another and another. And that saying of truly when one door closes, another opens, I really had to go through that door and make these connections, build this network, and start doing a lot of the hard work. I sometimes can literally picture myself with giant rolling trunks, like bigger than, probably double the size of me, rolling them down Fifth Avenue, running to like a trade show, running to the next, studio showing. It was chaos. But I literally got to have my hand in so many different amazing projects. I would edit collections, produce runway shows, design contents, campaigns, advertising, so many frickin' photo shoots. I can't even tell you how many photo shoots I've done in my life, 100 at least. opening brick and mortar stores around the country, building online platforms, working trade shows, trunk shows, photo shoots, working with department stores, boutiques all over the country. So that was truly amazing to be able to see design and what that means to people and how much of our lives it touches. You really get a sense for communities and people and what's important to people through those elements. And to be able to be a part of that was, I feel very fortunate for that. A few notable moments of this time in my life, sitting behind Justin Bieber at a fashion show in New York, that was definitely a highlight. Filling an entire pool in South Beach for Art Basel with ping pong balls that we then projected a video on top of during a runway show was also very cool. I mean, thousands of ping pong balls to fill the entire pool. And then everyone kind of jumping in at the end of the show. Shopping the top floor of Dior in Paris. There's only, you have to be invited up there. I can't believe that was somewhere I got to go, but those are some of the highlights. I spent a lot of time in New York, Miami, LA, Chicago, Montreal. And if that wasn't enough, I ended up moving to Paris. My poor mother was very sad. As an only child, I have to be close. But through all of this, I got to meet people from all walks of life and see their language, commerce, politics, trends, the things that make a culture and a society. That has been one of the most beautiful gifts I've ever been given. People were inviting me into their homes, their studios, their businesses, and telling me about their life and their passions and their ideas. And to be able to have that on a global view is just priceless. The incredible designers, artists, creatives, photographers, models that I worked with for many, many years have given me some of the most inspirational times of my life. So for that, I will forever be grateful. So you can only imagine the amount of frequent flyer miles I had sort of accrued through the years and always rushing. When I was doing this traveling a lot of the time, I tell this story to my team quite a bit, but I was addicted to caffeine. I was probably doing like 6-7 shots of espresso a day. It was in New York and Paris, that's probably normal. But I started noticing how it was affecting me. Jitters, anxiety, all these things. So now when I would be running through the airport, instead of looking for like an espresso, I started looking for a cold pressed juice or an acai bowl or something plant-based that I knew wouldn't give me that crash, those feelings of anxiety and jitters. And that's really where I started to notice this wellness trend emerging really all over the world. Even in Paris, I lived across the street from a juicery. The Grove was almost called Les Jus. So we ended up with the Grove because it is a little more inviting for people here in Omaha. So I'm glad we landed there. But that's what I kept searching out as I was towards the end of my career in consulting. And when I was deciding to leave, I kept coming back to health and wellness, and it became such a passion of mine. So I decided to move back to Omaha. When I came back to visit, I was always asking everybody, my Whole Foods checkout person, my Uber driver, I hadn't driven a car in years, but my friends, family, colleagues, I was asking them here in Omaha, do you know what cold pressed juice is? Do you know what acai is? And everyone would say yes, they knew exactly what it was, but they had no idea where to find it. So in those instances, I knew Omaha was ready and that I could really do this here. Another reason I chose Omaha was because of the cost of living. I knew I could build something here myself and I didn't have to bring in partners or investors, and it was something that I could grow here on my own. Now, I did have to take out a small business loan, and I'll just put a quick little tidbit in there. Since we're talking about perspective, what it was like to be a single young woman asking a bank for a loan for a small business. super interesting. I put together a beautiful business plan. I actually found it, and we're reeling it here on the TVs. I did so much research. It was operationally laid out, financial systems explained, designs, recipes, menu, the brand, everything I had done myself. I had worked so hard, and I was so proud of that thing. It had just about everything you would need in a perfect business plan. I worked for months tirelessly on that. The first bank I went through, and I will call them out, First National, that banker, OMG, you learn a lot. I was putting all my eggs in one basket. I was like, this is gonna pan out. How can they say no? It is just the best business plan ever. I remember sitting in a meeting with him once, because we had multiple, and he asked me if I had a husband or my dad that was gonna help me run the business. No lie. It was, devastating. You're just like, really? No, I'm running the business. I picked out all this equipment. I'm showing you how I'm gonna run it. So, it's some of those things that, again, perspective. As a young woman asking for money to start this dream and opportunity, there were definitely challenges. And I think that's so important to talk about and for us to be able to overcome those hurdles. So here I was, peddling my beautiful business plan to bank after bank after bank. Thank God we got someone to bite. So there I was able to start building this dream. I lived downtown in Omaha. Again, didn't have a car, hadn't driven in quite a while. So I was walking up to Zen Coffee every day. And I would pass this little building on the corner, a 100-year-old building that had been vacant for years. It was dusty, and people were, I would start talking about this space again and again and again, and I had the vision. I knew exactly how I wanted it to look and function, and I'd peek in the windows every day, and I was like, this is it. This is definitely the one. Ryan Ellis, thank God, my great friend at PJ Morgan, helped me get this building, and there started the Grove. Yeah, a very different vibe from what we've got here today, being in a 100-year-old building. Some issues, arose that were always surprising. But as we grew and as I opened, one of the greatest joys and things that motivate me every day is my team. We have always had the best team. I am so proud and happy of all the people that have come through our doors and helped make this dream a possibility. We have been primarily women-run business from the beginning, which I'm also very proud of, empowering them, showing them the possibilities of what can be done has been a very important part of our mission from day one. We also run a zero waste facility. Recycling and compost systems have also been in place in our business from day one, so that has always been important. We also run an in-house glass recycling program for our glass bottles that we use. I always knew I didn't want to use plastic, so that was definitely instilled in our mission from day one as well. Everything, we also work with local farmers, growers, and makers, which is a huge part of also our mission and what we do. Getting to know our growers and our farmers here has been so educational for me. Learning about the food system, our food systems in general, and agriculture, and what these people do so that we can eat is truly extraordinary. And the challenges that they are facing right now is also something that is so important. I would talk to farmers about the chemicals being sprayed on fields that are in their communities, big companies coming over and buying all their land that their families owned for years, and they feel like they are losing control over a lot of what they do. And the idea of this traditional farm really doesn't exist anymore. It's a rarity. We get 99% of our food from factory farming. And so to hear and listen to farmers of how their worlds have been changing has been very impactful and important to what we do here as well. Everything we make here is vegan and plant-based. A lot of people ask me, I get asked a lot if I am vegan. The short answer is every possible opportunity I am. So that being said, I try my hardest to consume as little of animal products as I can. And there's so many reasons for that, and there's reasons that I can expand others' perspectives with that. Our food industry is the top polluter in the world. It is greater than all of the other industries combined: transportation, oil, fashion. Food production outweighs the pollutants that they're emitting. It's greater than everything else. So that is one of the major issues. Factory farming runs through 50 billion animals a year around the world. The world population is 8 billion, just to give a little perspective. So it is, an issue that I think we all are going to have to face in our lifetime and find better solutions for. We also want to share the power of personal health here. So the things I Google at night are just silly. As we opened out west, and I am very much sort of a downtown person, so coming out west every day and driving, I would see so many fast food chains. So I Googled one night, why, I don't know, highest fast food restaurants per capita. The first state was Alabama. The second state was Nebraska. And again, those kinds of statistics just hit you a little bit. And it's like, this is who I feel like I'm sort of, I don't know if competing is the right word, but it's like the transparency aspect. You want people to know what is being sold to them, not just what the options are, but what is being targeted to us, telling us this is food and this is okay. And so that, some of these things that I have found out or learned through the process of being in the food industry sometimes are a little shocking. And they're things that open your eyes that we hope to share and provide better options for people. Something else I've learned about the food industry that is very challenging is it thrives on selling volume. It thrives on selling cheap food at very high volumes, and waste is not a factor. So in that regard too, we are very conscious here about trying to leave the lightest footprint possible. Lastly, as I think about perspective, this past few years have been a little crazy. So not only have I built a second store baby, I actually had a baby, a real human baby, who just turned a year old. So it's very, the last year has been stressful, to say the least. So being able to open this space with my partner, who's an architect who designed every aspect of this place, has been a real labor of love. We would be here as I was pregnant, designing out the floor plans, and then as Julian was born, bringing him here for construction meetings. And, it really was a family affair to get this second location up and running. And obviously being a mother has shifted my perspective the greatest in my life. Of course, my heart just has exploded into a million little pieces. And it has been one of my greatest joys, of course. So sharing that all of these things in the same year has been definitely overwhelming, to say the least. But I feel like we're coming kind of over that hard part. I am so happy that we have finally been open, that we're here. We're celebrating 5 months of being open here. Our downtown location will be celebrating 6 years this summer. And, as I think about perspective moving forward, I hope to keep my perspective wide open. I just want to keep learning and broadening my perspective. And that's what I hope that we can pass on to others. And I believe that's how we grow and become better. So thank you guys all so much for being here this morning and listening to my story. And yeah, we just hope to see you back and have a fabulous, fabulous day and weekend.